Hey, it's Josh. Today we're going to translate a game from Japanese to English. And so I have this game, Little Town Builders, that I got from Japan. And in there are cards and tiles that we'll need to translate. So I'm going to take you along every step of the way and show you how I do this. And we'll start with scanning in the cards and tiles themselves, translating them, and then creating stickers with those translations to print out and put back onto those cards and tiles. So any software or any products that I use will be linked below. It's not affiliated or sponsored in any way. This is just the stuff I'm going to be using, and I'm trying to give some alternatives as well if you don't want to use these things. So with that, go ahead and follow along, and hopefully this will help you translate your game. So the first step is to load all of the components into the computer so we can use Google Translate to roughly translate all the Japanese to English. I'm going to use a scanner down in the basement, so you'll follow me down there, but I'll also show you how to do it on your phone. The scanner just makes it easier to get the scale correct. So I'll show you both methods. Let's go downstairs. Here we are in my basement. This is where my printer is. And at this point, we're just going to use the scanner at the top and lay down basically as many of these tiles that we can do within the letter dimension. And I'm doing it within that dimension so that I'll know the exact sizing later on for the stickers and stuff, right? So if I scale it in a letter, then I know that when I go get it upstairs, I can scale it down to letter size and the sizing will be accurate. So we will just put as many of these as we can down in the scanner here, and I'll try to face them all the same direction. I'll take you over here so you can see what I'm doing. Come on, buddy. There we go. So maybe you can see that I'm keeping it directly off of the corner here. I'm leaving a little space. And I find that it just gets cut off if I don't do that. So sorry if you guys are getting nauseous. There's my solo gaming table here in the sad basement. But yeah, I'll just fill up as much as I can in those letter dimensions and then scan them in. Hello, dramatic lighting. I'm going to show you how to do this on your phone if you don't have a scanner. So what I've done is I've set up a piece of letter-sized paper and I've put all of the cards on there, or as many as I can fit. And then we're going to need your phone and the Google Chrome app to do this. So we're going to switch over to my phone now. Okay, and then from here, next to the search or type URL bar, there's a microphone icon and then the Google Lens icon. We'll hit that Google Lens and that will take us to Google Lens. We'll change it from search at the bottom to translate. And this is basically the same function we're going to do later on desktop, but I'm using the grid lines on this little mat to help me kind of line up a photo and lock it in with that white button there at the bottom of the screen or at the right. I didn't quite get it. Sega total. I didn't quite get the translation there. I would just retake the photo, but I'm not going to retake the photo since the process will just be the same, but it's really just important that you get a letter-sized paper. That way we can have the correct scale later on, and try to get your phone kind of as horizontally parallel as you can to lock in the scale. But from here, you would just take a screenshot of this photo and then send it to your computer in some way. Now that we have all of the components loaded into our computer, we will go to Google Translate and you upload those images to have Google process all of that. We go to the image tab and you can either browse your files or paste from your clipboard. So I'll drag and drop that file here and let it do its thing. Detect language, we're going to want it to be Japanese, and then we want it to translate to English. Okay, it did a pretty good job. There are a few that are kind of small, but I can still read it. Carpenter, Triumphal Arc. I just know this is the Arc de Triomphe, so close. But yeah, so some of these you'll have to use your intuition. And then we noticed this one, it did not translate. So we'll fix that in a second. But for now, we download this picture just so we can kind of save it. And that way we can use this to create our translation labels. For the one that didn't work, I'm gonna open up that original file, the scan, and just zoom in here. And then I'll use print screen just to grab a little screenshot of that. And that will be copied to my clipboard. And then I'll exit out of this and paste that here. And boom, there we go. So we know that that one is a shrine. Sometimes if I don't like the translation or I think it's just kind of odd, like various shops, I'll screen grab that again and then paste that into here. And then I don't know if there's a way to copy the original text easier than this, but what I usually do is translate it to back to Japanese and then copy text. So you can see it's actually general store, which makes a lot more sense. You can also go back to text here and pop it in and see it in English. And then you can get some different options as well. So yeah, if you don't like the translation, that's another way you can go about seeing some additional translations just using Google. So either using the search or, in this case, the drop-down worked as well. But yeah, that can help inform your choice. Now that we have everything in the computer, the next step is to size out how big we need our labels to be and then start creating the labels. I would usually use Adobe Illustrator just because I'm more familiar with it. But there are other tools online that you can use to do something similar. And one that I'm most familiar with is Figma. So we'll use that today just to show you how you can do it without having to download Adobe Illustrator. Figma is free, at least for, I don't know how many files you can store, but you can at least do this one for free. And as long as you don't need to keep track of a bunch of different files, then you probably should be fine. So here we are in Figma. It's a new untitled file. And the first thing we need to do is create a frame. So this button down here will let you do that. And then we want to select paper and letter if you're in the US. This will be an 8.5 by 11. This will be the ratio that the scan brought in. So that's what I'm going to use. It's also going to be what we print out. So from here, we need to bring in our scanned image into Figma so we can start sizing things up. Okay, and like I said, it might be a lot bigger. Also, the frame is the wrong, I guess, orientation. So we'll click back to the frame over here and we'll rotate this holding shift. So it locks it in to 180 degrees. And then we'll scale down our cards here. We need to actually rotate this as well. So we'll go ahead and do that. Again, holding shift so that it goes in increments. And I put it upside down, so let's keep doing it all the way around. And I'll line that up in the middle so it kind of snaps in, and then I'm going to hold shift and alt to scale that down from the center. Okay, and now we have this aligned, and this is basically how it came in the right scale and ratio. So at this point, I'm going to right click and lock that there so that I can no longer move it around, so I won't accidentally do that as we try to create our stickers. So from here, my objective is let's find the one that has the biggest, I guess, text area and use that as our sticker size. I like to do this where all the stickers are the same size. You could, of course, make a smaller one for this one and a larger one for this one if you wanted. This is the one that's kind of calling out to me that looks like it's the largest, maybe this one as well. But it looks like these kind of go to almost the end of this graph paper. Like we're kind of blessed here in that there is actually a grid for us to follow, so we can utilize that grid to know exactly how big our stickers need to be. So yeah, it looks like these ones kind of go to the edge of that graph paper and then maybe 3 boxes total. So from here, what I want to do is grab a rectangle and sort of size out that box. So I'll do 3 boxes by, and then go to so that there's, that almost 1 box left. And that looks about right. So 154 by 46. And then what I like to do is try to find a color that is similar to the background so that it's kind of as seamless as possible. So I hit I to get the eyedropper, the I key, and we'll just find a color. Just kind of like scroll around until I find something pretty close. Like obviously there's a texture and stuff. So that looks pretty good, right? It's kind of the average between all the colors. And so now we have our sticker shape, and we can take this and start creating the labels for all of the cards. And the process would be the same for the tiles as well. We would just find the different maximum dimensions that we want for each of the text areas, and then try to find a color that makes it as seamless as possible. Now that we have our sticker size, we want to create a new page, and I'm going to copy this just hitting Control-C, but you can right click it as well and copy. Create a new page. So now we have page 2, and this is where we'll actually create our sheet that we'll be printing. So this is a reference page, and then this one will be the one that we print. So same thing where we need the frame and we need a letter. And this one I'm going to leave in this orientation, portrait. And from here, we're going to paste our thing. And I like to just align it to the corner and then hold shift and go right down, right down, right down, just to give us an equal space between the edge of the page so it doesn't get cut off when we print. From here, we want to create a text box that is the same size as the rectangle. So if we kind of drag and drop, we remember 154 by 46. That's the same dimensions. And then we can basically establish our font size and our font that we want to use. In this case, I've kind of already prepared. I found a Google font called Poppins that is similar to the English version of this game. Oh, zoom in. I looked at these cards and then I just kind of identified a couple characters that gave this font its personality. And one that always sticks out to me is the lowercase a and like uppercase A, B. These things, like they kind of give you the personality of the font for me. So this is a sans serif font, and all I did was went to Google Fonts. You can type in a specific phrase. I think up here, right? So maybe I'll just say have 2 buildings, and that should give me something similar. You can even just type in A, B, C, D, E, F, and you can see that Poppins had this similar kind of rounded A. It looked the most similar to what is on these cards here. And it also had all the weights. You can see it has 18 styles, so it has bold, italics, everything that we need. So I chose Poppins, and Figma kind of already has all the Google fonts loaded in addition to some other ones. So that makes it really convenient. If you were doing this on Illustrator, you would just go to Poppins and then get font and then download it, and then you can install it. It comes in a zip file. You would unzip it and then just highlight all the fonts and right click install. But for Figma, it's already in there, so we don't have to worry about that. From here, we'll just look at our translations and go ahead and type in one of them just to get a feel for how this is going to work. And I'll look for a longer one, such as this one. By the end of the 4th round, you have gained victory points equal to or greater than 4 times your worker. That's the one that we sort of modeled this entire text box after. So I will go in here, and I've made sure that the alignment is centered and the vertical space is centered, and that's why it's typing from the middle of the box. I've entered in the text here at 6-point font, which is typically agreed upon as like the smallest you should go with font to make it still readable. We might have to go smaller in some cases, but I'm going to try to keep it at a minimum of 6. And it looks like we still have some space, but I don't like that this kind of runs up on the edge. I want to add some padding to this text box. And so I'm going to make the dimensions, I'm going to bring them in a little bit so that there's some kind of implied space. So let's give it like 10 pixels on each side. So that'll be 36. And then again, we'll line that up in the center. There we go. So now we have some extra space to make sure that the text doesn't run all the way to the edge of the box. And I think we can even go up a few font sizes. If this is, I should also say, I kind of got creative with the wording. I found that the actual translation was a little too verbose. And so I just try to clarify things to make sense to me. So, and I liked how the English version had certain key phrases bolded. So I did something similar here where I just highlighted at the end of the 4th round and then changed it to bold from regular. Size 8 should work. We can always change this once we get all of our stickers in here, but I'm going to go with 8 for now. And just to test this, in case there is something that's longer, let's see. I think we can get a 3rd line in here. So that should give us enough space. I feel hopeful that I can get all the translations into at least 3 lines while still kind of maximizing the visual clarity of a larger font size. From here, what we're going to do is just copy this. And in fact, you can hold Alt and Shift, and that will create a copy and keep it in line here. And then we'll just add a little bit of space in between them. That way, when we're physically cutting them, this part sort of gets destroyed by the scissors, and we can keep the labels clean. So I like to add just a little bit of space. In fact, I might even put like 1 pixel in between. 2 might be a little too big, but this is something you can play with. And from here, there were 24 cards, so I'm going to make 24 of these, and I'll just leave the text the same, and then we'll adjust all of them to have the translation from English. And I should also say the translation, like I said, I play with them a little bit to make them make sense and kind of be concise. Google Translate isn't going to always like Englishify everything. So you kind of have to translate yourself a little bit, that translation. Also, be resourceful. And if there are existing translations like this, I know that Little Town is basically the same game. So I'm going to look at these existing cards that came in that game as examples and kind of map these to the Japanese version and use their wording since somebody's kind of already done this work for us. Additionally, there were a few posts on BGG that I found where somebody has already kind of undertaken this task and has translated certain portions. Like these are the special building tiles that didn't exist in the base game. And they say that the 24 regular buildings are the same. I found another person, shout out to Arctic Jack, who has already done this work as well, where they've translated some of these things, and I can use their work to inform mine. So I just want to shout out to Arctic Jack for already doing this, as well as Sharp Object for doing some of this work. And I think there was another guy who helped out, his name was Julian, on another post that I'd found, where he clarified some questions that Arctic Jack had on some of the cards. So using all that together and then making my own informed decisions, I will translate all of those cards, and we'll see you back here in a second. So I did the rest of the work in Illustrator, and we can see that here, and I spent some time just making sure I got everything correct in a language that makes sense to me, since I'll be the one playing the game. So I've got everything lined up, and then I just made sure, again, to have that 1 pixel space in between everything. So I did the same thing for all of the tiles, and I made sure to make multiple copies of field, since that is that base tile that there are multiple copies of. Some of those buildings were actually clarified in the rulebook as well, some of the special ones. And so I used Google Lens to help me determine what was going on and what was being said by that. So that's another possible resource if those are identified in the rulebook itself. From here, we're going to print this out on regular paper to basically test out our sizing on everything and make sure that it fits the tiles and that the colors are good enough. You can tweak this stuff as you feel is necessary. Okay, so I have my test prints and I just cut them out with scissors, and I didn't cut out everything, and I wasn't too precious about it since these are just for tests. But we can see here's the card, and then here is the label. I'll try to get my finger out of the way. Yeah, so it looks like the sizing's pretty good. The color's decent. I might tweak it a little bit. So yeah, I'll make those adjustments, and then I'll print out the real thing on the sticker paper. Back in the basement, because we're gonna print off onto sticker paper those labels. So now that we've confirmed like the color and sizing and all that stuff, we're ready to print these out. So I'm using this printer paper that I got from Online Labels. I got it off of Amazon. And if you have your own printer, you can do this. You can also potentially just take this into like a FedEx, Kinko's, or some other print shop and ask if they can print on it. They might even have full label paper. That's what you're looking for, because we want to make it our dimensions, right? So we need the whole thing to be a label. So sometimes there's like preset sticker paper where it already has the shapes. We want the full thing. And in the past, what I did, because I didn't want to go to FedEx and I wasn't sure, I've just never done that. And I was feeling lazy. I used onlinelabels.com to print something out and ship it to me. And that was before I owned a printer. It was really expensive though. It was like $30 for 2 pages or something. So only do this if you're in a pinch. But yeah, if you own a printer, this is very simple. You just need this printer paper, you feed it in and you print that sucker out. Okay, here we are. We got our 2 pieces of paper here. And what I like to do at this point is just make sure that it's printed on the right side. So I'll just like go find the corner here, somewhere where it's not gonna affect the printed piece, and just make sure, peel it and make sure the sticky side is where the labels are. All right, guys, so now it's time to actually cut these stickers up and put them on the tiles. So the one thing that I want to show you that I use that's made this a little bit easier is this thing right here, which again, I've linked in the description if you want to use this, but it essentially lets you cut in a straight line using this little blade here. And so you just feed the paper in and whoop, and zoop it. And so that makes it a lot easier, at least to get the big lines done, right? Like I don't use this for the individual horizontal lines, but to cut this initial straight line on both sides, I think is very useful. Okay, so once I've cut down the edges of those entire column of labels, then I leave myself a little bit of room at the top or bottom so that I can easily separate the sticker from the back without destroying the actual label. And I do it this way so, one, I only have to peel that and separate it once because it's the most frustrating part of this entire process. And also so I don't destroy and mangle the labels. So at this point, we have that separated, and I'll just kind of continue peeling this back and cutting off each one of these with scissors, and then adhering them to the cards or tiles at this point. Okay, and then I just try to line it up as best as I can. And these grid lines are really going to help me, as I've mentioned before, for this particular build. Okay, so, you know, not perfect. I don't claim to be a craftsman or an artist, but this is good enough for me. And then the final step for cards specifically is I will put them into a card sleeve. So an even smarter way of doing this that I should have done before this is basically aligning the cards in the same, I guess, order as your labels, your stickers, and same for the tiles. That'll make things a little bit easier. Like I said, you can always reference, you can use Google Lens to translate something on the fly, or just keep the image of the translations that you had handy, like the before and after the translations. That way you can find the things that you need, especially useful when you're uncertain looking at these cards. I think the tiles will be easier, but these objective cards are a little more difficult to discern what's what. They do have slight illustrations, but sometimes it's not enough. So yeah, I'm basically just going to continue that process, and I'm going to turn on some music and just chill or watch a podcast or do something else and kind of just let my hands do the work while my brain's elsewhere. Just enjoy the process. All right, and we're all finished. It took me just about an hour to assemble everything, and I'll show you some of the results. So if you took more time, you guys can see you. There you are. But if you took more time, you could get rid of those white edges that I have. Sorry about the reflections, but I'm not too precious about it, as I said. I prioritize just getting it done. I'm not a craftsman, and frankly, I despise arts and crafts. I don't know, it just stresses me out and it makes me sweaty. So I don't like doing it, but you can take your time though and perfect everything if you'd like to. So here's an example of a tile as well. So the colors don't match exactly, and everybody's printer is going to be a little bit different, but after going back and forth a few times, I'm happy enough with the result. You can see here's like the color compared to those bottom sections, like they're actually pretty close. I did notice that afterwards that this natural spring one has something here that I didn't realize needed translating, but it just says no cost. So personally, I think I'll just remember that, or I'll print out a sticker, but I feel a little bad having to print out an entire sticker sheet for just that one little thing. So I might just cut out some unused sticker and just write no cost on it, to be honest. So I'm happy with the results. I'll share all of these files on BGG. So if you want to play this version of the game and acquire it, you can. And thanks for coming along with me on this. And I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments and I'll do my best to reply. So thank you.